You don't want to know how many times I've been crying for 2 slot drops. Welcome to Crystar, an RPG story-focused game centered around young girls and their emotions. Wait a minute, I've played these games before. That's right, and we're doing it again. A tragedy or a comedy. These two options appear to be the only outcome for the unfortunate souls that wander purgatory. Crystar's primary theme is self, or ego, and frequently references Greek philosophy. The narrative at first is quite easy to understand, as Rei seeks revival for her sister, and is accompanied by like-minded friends. But it becomes more complicated after Chapter 4, when you realize that each of the girls have developed an unhealthy obsession with their conviction. For Rei, it's desperation. For Kokoro, it's revenge. For Sen, it's righteousness. And for Nanana, it's belonging. Each girl is willing to sacrifice everything in order to maintain their ego. The antagonists are also very similar, which makes them equally compelling. For the main cast, Anamnesis is a direct source of groupthink hatred and justification for execution, because of her manipulation of other revenants and for bringing the majority of the cast into purgatory. As for Mirai, her ego is so powerful that she was able to achieve revival once before. She killed Rei's parents and joked about killing Thelema, all for her obsession. Her true nature being revealed is a good foil to how Rei's desperation was developing towards as well. Crystar's progression of the story and characters is more of a blind pursuit rather than a climbing staircase, where accomplishing their goals does not grant them personal or emotional satisfaction. Rather, it further removes them from their existing self-consciousness, making them no better than the specters and revenants they execute. That's why Thelema and Kuon are the only real ones, as both of these characters were able to perceive the bigger picture and sacrifice themselves without prioritizing their ego. This makes Purgatory a battleground of natural selection, where the strongest specters consume the souls of others to become revenants, actualizing their self-consciousness and attaining revival at the cogs. A pretty fair system if it weren't for the twin managers, Mephistopheles or these two. They fear rebellion and loss of change or control from other revenants, so the rate of revival is incredibly low. Mirai's first revival was most likely an oversight, so when Rei and the others arrived, the twins made sure to monitor their abilities with the Executor contract. Now, from a gameplay perspective, the story moves incredibly slow. The ratio of the story to gameplay is about 1:3, as each mission typically contains 1 to 2 short scenes as you progress the level, and 1 longer scene after an ordeal is complete. Each ordeal is typically 3 instances long, with a boss or revenant encounter at the end. This makes the story feel longer than it actually is, as gameplay feels repetitive and unengaging, especially since the game looped Chapter 6 and 7 twice, with minor story differences. Player retention can definitely be lost during these periods, but that being said, the final timeline is a major payoff for all the characters in the game, as everyone's memories return and character motives and past traumas are all revealed. Overall, Crystar had a solid story to tell, but the uninteresting and repetitive ordeal gameplay can hinder story engagement. Functionally, there isn't any side content in Crystar. The game is a one singular linear experience of ordeals, and although there is an endgame boss rush, it's not really a challenge. Sentiments are your equipment and are straightforward to acquire and modify. During ordeals, you obtain torments from defeating revenants, and you can only carry out a max of 10 per ordeal, so it becomes a small grind when searching for rare sentiments. The great part about this system is that you can mostly ignore combat in this game and still be ready for bosses. All enemies only have 2 attacks, and their animations are very predictable. This makes revenant enemies the only worthwhile mobs to kill, as they always drop torments and items. Skills are learned as your characters level up, and each character has a different moveset and can be swapped into combat at any time. This freedom is nice and makes dying incredibly hard, as standby characters will regenerate health when not on the field. Now, that being said, a lot of skills are objectively upgrades of existing ones, and there are a lot of useless skills that make some characters not worth using until they've acquired a certain one. Finally, it's worth noting that each enemy has 9 reskins. It's the most egregious recycling I've seen. Just kidding. I've played Yakuza games. Doesn't make the game bad, but it's very noticeable, as you've seen all the enemies after Chapter 2, and there are no new special characteristics to the variants. And that will be it for Crystar. For my first Furio game, I'm pretty satisfied with the foundation that this game has. Although the gameplay is generic and uninspiring, it's still playable and functional, which means it can only be improved on. I'm optimistic and looking forward to playing more from this catalog, as they're not as overwhelming in content and more story-focused experiences.